Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having joined us again. We are waiting for other two guests to join us so that we can all perform maybe together, enjoy the performance together, if you don't mind. And therefore, then our performers from these, can initiate it. I'm very pleased, actually, while I'm waiting for the honorable guests to take a seat on the podium, if they are already here. So I'm also inviting His Excellency Kamamura to join us, if he's already in the room, and Her Excellency Maria Angela Zappia to join us from the Permanent Mission of Japan, one, and the second one from the Permanent Mission of Italy, so that then we are all in place already. I see the ambassador joining us as well. Thank you very much from Japan. Thank you. Thank you all. Well, the second part of this fantastic ceremony, the 3rd of December, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, continues with some notes that can be understood by everybody, because music is international. And for those of you or us who might have some hearing impairments, I hope that there will be other people describing to you the feelings and the emotions they're feeling. Not long ago, actually recently, I went to an amazing performance of a group coming from China, around 100 artists who performed at the Lincoln Center. All of them were hearing impaired or visually impaired, and trust me, what I saw on the stage were amazing artists who played and danced at the sound of music they couldn't hear, or movements they couldn't see. So art is universal, as it should be accessibility, universal and very inclusive. I'm very pleased to welcome 6 talented musicians from the Republic of Korea to the stage. I would like to acknowledge that the performers were invited by the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea. Along with promoting sports for persons with intellectual disabilities, Special Olympics Korea has deliberately worked to give artists with intellectual disabilities in Korea opportunities to perform not only at national level, but also at international level. In order to raise the awareness for artistic skills of people with intellectual disabilities, Special Olympics Korea has held a special music and art festival, the one and only international cultural festival for artists with intellectual disabilities since 2013. The musicians here today are selected from international and national music festivals. Let's welcome them. Let's welcome the artists. Well, what can we say? Being Italian, I was fascinated by the perfection of the pronunciation of the singer. Bravo, bravissimo, I would say in my language. Really congratulations. It has been an amazing opening of the afternoon. And again, thank you very much to the excellent performance of the group from the Republic of Korea. A really big applause once more. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with our panel, which will be discussing accessible cities for all, smart and inclusive urban planning. And in our discussion today, we will explore innovative solutions to challenges that future cities will face in making infrastructures, social services, information, and safe environments accessible for all in a world that demographically is changing. So actually, this will benefit everybody, not only persons with disabilities. Before that, I would like to share with you a 4-minute video recorded by the governor of the from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. This video was recorded actually 3 years ago when the division I lead started a series of events called United Cities for All. And this is the 3rd year that we are having United Cities for All. And since we're also celebrating an important resolution on sports for all, I think that this is going to be quite an interesting video, very, very actual even nowadays. And then we will proceed with opening remarks before the session from the various excellencies sitting around the table. If we could show the video, please, the 4 minutes. Thank you.
Excuse me, I can't see the video.
In recent years, cities and municipalities have been playing larger roles in creating truly united societies with environments where people with disabilities can break through social barriers, live vigorously, and be active in the communities. When I look at Goal 11 of the Sustainable Development Goals to make cities and settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, I feel my responsibility as governor of the world's largest city with a population of 30.6 million. To create a sustainable society, I am aiming to build a new Tokyo comprised of 3 cities: a safe city, a smart city, and a diverse city. The diverse city, in particular, will be one where all citizens are socially included and able to be active regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, or disability. I strongly believe that a truly diverse city can be created by people of all abilities, respecting each other and living their lives together. I also believe that this can contribute greatly toward achieving of the goals of the CRPD. It is timely that Tokyo will be hosting the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2020. I see the Games as a huge opportunity for Tokyo to evolve into a truly diverse city. These Games provide a chance to improve the city's accessibility by accelerating the development of universally designed, barrier-free, tangible and intangible infrastructure. I believe the Paralympic Games have an even greater power of their own. They allow many people, especially children, to see the amazing talents that people with disabilities have and allow people of all abilities to respect each other's differences to help realize a diverse and accepting society. In Tokyo, we are already creating opportunities for children and the general public to meet with Paralympians and experience Paralympic events for themselves. Last month, to create excitement around Paralympic sports, we established a fun site called Team Beyond. Anyone can join this team, and upon joining, you can choose your own name and number for your jersey. I immediately joined the team and selected number 2020. With this initiative, people of all abilities can create an exciting Paralympic Games together. Through the amazing efforts of the Tokyo 2020 Paralympians, I hope that the world will foster a greater understanding and support for people with disabilities, and that Tokyo will contribute to the creation of a more inclusive world. Tokyo is continuing to evolve into an even more accessible and inclusive city. We welcome people of all abilities. Please come visit us soon.
Thank you very much for this contribution. And I would like now to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Luis Gallegos, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Ecuador to the United Nations. In order for all speakers to be able to share their knowledge and welcoming remarks, I would suggest to stay around 5-6 minutes if it is possible. Thank you. Ambassador?
For being with a very distinguished panel of good friends and from long ago. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Special Olympic musicians, the Korean Special Olympic musicians, both to thank the mission of Korea and Special Olympics. I'm a board member of the International Special Olympics Board and enjoy very much everything Special Olympics does for persons with intellectual disabilities, one of the most challenging aspects of disability. Every year on this day, the international community comes together to raise awareness of the rights of persons with disabilities. This event on Accessible Cities for All, which Ecuador is proud to co-sponsor this afternoon, gives us an opportunity to discuss a key aspect of those rights: the right of every person with disability to live independently and participate fully in the aspects of life on an equal basis with others. Accessibility to the physical environment, to transportation, to information and communication technologies, including the systems and the other facilities that service open and provided to the public, both in urban and rural areas, is a prerequisite for this. In the context of cities and urban planning, accessibility and inclusion are achieved through measures which include the identification and elimination of obstacles and barriers to accessibility and concrete strategies and policies, proposals to develop an integrated approach to smart and inclusive cities that are accessible to all. I also have the honor of being the president of the Board of Trustees of G3ICT, the Global Compact for Inclusive ITCs. And we have been working since 2006 on including information and communication technology and integrating it into all aspects of life. After finishing the negotiation of the CRPD in 2006, one of the principal initiatives was to have Article 9 on accessibility, and especially the ones on ITCs. So the initiative of G3ICT of integrated small cities and inclusive smart cities. Every city in the world wants to be smart today, have applications of all types. How can we get persons with disabilities, and I'm talking not only about persons who are born or have acquired disabilities during their lives for whatever reason, but especially the aging. So this becomes a universal trait that we all will need and that we all have to promote. Ecuador had the honor of hosting the third conference, United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development in 2016, and on that occasion, my country also co-organized a high-level forum on disability inclusion and accessible urban development, which took place on the eve of Habitat 3 and brought together more than 100 global urban planners and disability experts, many of which I see in this room today. The event homed in on finding solutions to make urban development inclusive of the accessible to the world's 1 billion persons with disabilities and 800 million people aging, many of whom live in cities. As you know, the United Nations has established that by the year 2050, 64% of the developing countries' population will be urban and 86% of the developed world will live in cities. Aimed at supporting states and other stakeholders in jointly advancing accessible and inclusive urban development, the event resulted in a set of key recommendations to build inclusive and accessible cities and implement the new agenda for all, including persons with disabilities. We need to have universal design integrated into every aspect of public policy in order to do this. I am particularly proud to briefly share with you today some of the accomplishments, programs, and strategies we have implemented in Ecuador since then, both in the construction of our national habitat policy and our urban agenda, and more specifically on initiatives and concrete actions in advancing urban development to be accessible, inclusive to all, including persons with disabilities and other special needs. This is part of our National Development Plan, Toda una Vida, which roughly translates into English as through a lifetime or through the life course. Through this plan, the national government seeks to promote and program a lifetime of guaranteed rights throughout life, the life cycle. This implies a holistic and inclusive view so that no one is left out or left behind, but that we all go together. As part of this vision, Ecuador has recently developed and adopted 27 technical norms on accessibility to physical environment, mandatory to all building, public and private, including to promote the design and building of accessible environments. 8 other technical norms on playgrounds and recreational areas that are inclusive to all, and technical norms on public transportation, as well as 10 specific technical norms on access to communication and information. I would also like to quickly refer to our national housing program called Casa para Todos, which means House for All, which is an excellent example of inclusive urban planning. Ecuador's new legislation on social interest housing includes, for example, the need to consider universal design for the all projects, gives priority to persons with disabilities and persons aging and others in vulnerable situations, and agents and beneficiaries of development, including training, entrepreneurship, activities, as well as inclusive parks and green areas aimed at fostering a sense of community. I am sure that in our discussions today, we will further contribute to further our efforts and actions to work together toward finding innovative solutions to ensure that cities are accessible to all through a smart and inclusive urban planning, now that we begin an era of artificial intelligence and where technology will be predominant. We need to look at this very carefully in order for the division not to be increased. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Gallegos, thank you very much for having explained such a complex and articulated subject in 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Oh my God. Thank you very much. Well, since today we passed the resolution on sports and physical activities, it's nice to be dynamic also on the podium. Thank you very much. Now, join me in welcoming Her Excellency Ms. Mariangela Zappia, Ambassador and also Permanent Representative of Italy to the United Nations. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Daniela. And let me tell you that I'm truly glad to attend this year's celebration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, particularly glad to attend this event, to Desa and to you, and of course also very honored to share some perspective with these distinguished panelists. I also want to thank the musicians and the singer. You did a really astonishing performance, so really very well, good for you. Thank you so much for that. As you know, Italy has always been at the forefront of the global commitment to promote and to protect the human rights of persons with disabilities. One little fact, the first draft of the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was firstly submitted by the Italian delegation more than 20 years ago in 1987, and the Convention itself, adopted in 2006, was largely based on the relevant Italian legislation. Exactly. Italy has resolutely led the way, and particularly when it comes to mental and intellectual disability. The so-called Basaglia law of 1978, of which this year we celebrate the 40th anniversary, has been the first legislative measure worldwide to abolish permanently psychiatric hospitals. In substance, fully integrating persons with mental and intellectual disability into the society in full compliance with the saying, "Nothing about us without us." This is precisely the embodiment of human rights approach to disability, which is, after all, the paradigm shift brought about by the Convention. Now, coming to today's event, I want to commend DESA for the choice of the topic of this year's International Day, and I'm particularly glad to take the floor in this panel, which focuses on urban planning and accessibility and on smart city. The issue of accessibility indeed is crucial to the building of a more open, just and inclusive society in order to enable persons with disability to live independently and to participate fully in all aspects of life, of their communities, and of society more broadly. Access to the physical environment and transportation, as well as to information and communication, including information and communication technologies, must be ensured. And we just heard the example of Ecuador brought by my friend Ambassador Gallegos. Italy is leading the way also with reference to this specific aspect, though through the coordination a national observatory on the condition of persons with disability, constituted of representatives of public administration and organizations of people with disability, and established in 2010 in order to provide guidance and innovative strategies on the implementation of the Convention. Specific programs and initiatives have been devised both at the national and the local level, and allow me to mention some of those. First of all, at the national level, and with reference to the full enjoyment of cultural heritage, to which we are strongly committed, in 2017, the Ministry of Cultural Heritage and Activities launched a vast-scale project aimed at overcoming architectural, cognitive, and sensory barriers to fruition of public cultural heritage, and was instrumental in renovating and equipping with innovative infrastructures and technologies several cultural sites nationwide, from Rome to Urbino to Naples to Florence. Also, at the beginning of 2019, the project Bandiera Lilla will be launched, which will target the strengthening of accessibility of reception and touristic infrastructures in Italian cities, awarding those which will make significant progress in the field with, as the title of the project goes, a lilac flag, the same way we award with a blue flag cities that have really non-polluted sea. Finally, in 2016, Italy was celebrated by the UN in Vienna as a model in education inclusiveness and for relinquishing once and for all the separation of classes for students with disabilities. Furthermore, at the local level, the City of Milan has by now established a system of complete accessibility of its public transportation system and information technology facilities, which earned the city the European Union Access City Award in 2016. And also, it is with great satisfaction that I wish to announce that tomorrow in Brussels, the city of Monteverde, city is a big name for a small town of less than 1,000 inhabitants, not far from Naples, will be awarded a special prize for the preservation of cultural heritage and accessibility in the framework of the European Union Access City Award ceremony, as a tribute to the exemplary efforts carried out by the town to promote an urban environment suitable to everyone. So may today's celebration be an occasion to build on the momentum, to remove physical and cultural barriers, and to promote in concrete terms the rights and well-being of persons with disability in all spheres of their life. And I thank you again, Daniela, for convening this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so proud of this panel. Thank you, not only for the content, but also for the respect for other colleagues in terms of timing. And yes, I am one of those who benefited of the law approved in Italy back in the early 70s that eliminated barriers between children with and without disabilities, and actually finally, after 3 years of attending ordinary school as an outlaw, because I had a very great dean who could see in me the child with the possibility to learn, and she wasn't just stuck by my wheelchair and attracted by my wheelchair. So she said, this child has all the abilities to learn. I don't see why she should go to a special school. And that was my blessing, actually. But 3 years later, finally, I could attend school legally because all children were included. So thank you very much also for my country to having moved fast at that time. But now, without talking about my personal benefiting actually of these amazing achievements, I would like Ambassador and His Excellency Ambassador Yasuisa Kamamura.
That's correct.
As well as Deputy Permanent Representative of Japan to the United Nations, to add even more to what has already been mentioned by your Governor of Tokyo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vass. Thank you for your kind introduction and the invitation to this forum. I also thank the DESA and the all involved in the dedicated efforts to prepare this event. And I also would like to join the ambassadors in giving big hand to the Special Olympics performance from the Republic of Korea. It was wonderful and memorable performance by them. I thank you again. The panel discussion in this afternoon session will focus on how to develop an integrated approach for smart and inclusive cities that are accessible to all. Article 9 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities obligates states parties to take appropriate measures to ensure persons with disabilities access to facilities and services on an equal basis with others. And Article 19 of the Convention recognizes the equal right of all persons with disabilities to live in the community with choices equal to others. Full and effective participation and inclusion in society is a key principle of the Convention, and fundamental policies must be taken to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities. As you saw the video message by Governor of Tokyo a minute ago, Japan will host the Tokyo Paralympic Games in 2020 in a year and a half year's time. People with and without disabilities from all over the world will gather at the Paralympic Games and experience overwhelming performances by the Paralympians. This 2020 event provides us with opportunities to move our society towards full inclusion. In March this year, Japan finalized its fourth basic program for persons with disabilities. This is a 5-year master plan on policies for persons with disabilities and sets clear benchmarks with concrete goals to realize evidence-based policy making. Benchmarks include such goals which should be achieved by the fiscal year 2020. For example, passenger facilities handling more than 3,000 passengers a day and major roads must achieve the target of 100% barrier-free access. And railway vehicles must achieve 70% barrier-free access. This is just a few examples. Activities in Japan to move our society towards full inclusion are not only limited to metropolitan areas, but are also undergone in local communities. The Inclusive Society Host Town project, created in anticipation of the 2020 Paralympic Games, encourages local retailers to renovate their shops for full accessibility and encourages communities to team up with para-athletes and persons with disabilities for community projects such as redesigning barrier-free local maps. Through these direct interactions, localities will have the opportunity to broaden their perspectives regarding persons with disabilities. This expansion of a cultural respect for diversity is also happening in the private sector and among student youth. Students at the University of Tokyo created the Empower Project, a student-led initiative when those wearing the project's Magenta Star badge can identify themselves to persons with disabilities, both outwardly visible and not, as supporters ready to provide help if requested. This activity could eliminate barriers that hamper the social inclusion of all persons, especially those who do not wish to disclose their situation or who have challenges that cannot be identified by appearance. The project was also introduced at this event last year by the students themselves, and they have organized several events to promote their projects with UNFPA, UN Women, and UNDP. The 1964 Tokyo Paralympic Games, hosted by Japan, was the first event to formally use the term Paralympics in association with the Games, and already more than half a century has passed since then. During this time, our understanding of disabilities has shifted to the social model, which reorganizes that barriers do not exist on the side of individuals, but rather on the side of society, which hampers individuals from full social inclusion. Leading up to this important moment, Japan is making use of universal design and information and communication technologies to build a society with full inclusion for all. I hope that we will hold productive discussions on good practices and current challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And you are giving 30 seconds more to your colleague on my left. I would like to introduce and welcome Mr. Saud Al-Shamisi, Deputy Permanent Representative of the United Arab Emirates, permanent mission to the United Nations. I've been to Dubai not long ago, and I was asked to talk about accessibility, actually, and inclusion. So I must say that what I saw there was really amazing, and it's setting an excellent example for many others to follow. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniela. I actually need all the time I can get. I'm not usually good with timing, so watch that clock. I join others in thanking you, your team, the distinguished guests on this panel, and of course the incredible musicians from the Republic of Tokyo. Republic of Korea. This year, the UAE marked the 100th birthday of our founding father and first president, His Highness Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, with the year of Zayed. His vision for a dynamic and diverse nation embraced all people and offered everyone a genuine opportunity to succeed. Grounded by his vision and leading with our commitment to achieving Agenda 2030, the UAE prioritizes the inclusion of the persons with disabilities and focuses on enabling and empowering them to achieve their aspirations and participate fully in society. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 billion people around the world live with some sort of disability. While these persons with disabilities are among the most marginalized globally in the United Arab Emirates, we celebrate them for their resolve and use the term people of determination to highlight their perseverance and drive to shape their own futures and contribute to their communities. As a young nation that has witnessed immense change in the past 5 decades, our urban centers have been the source of progress and dynamism that continues to propel our communities to the future. Everyone's input is both necessary and important to fulfill our aspiration, particularly that of people of determination and more importantly, women and girls with disabilities. Our leadership recognized that our path towards progress must include persons with disabilities. Accordingly, it required all entities at all levels of government to be fully capable of serving persons with disabilities and report to the Prime Minister's office on the progress. It additionally required that persons of determination be part of policy consultations as they know best what they need from government. While this is still a work in progress domestically, the approach helps to ensure the availability and effective use of government resources. In line with Agenda 2030, the outcome document of the Rio Plus 20 conference, The Future We Want, and the new urban agenda, among other agreements, the UAE works towards 1. Effectively removing barriers to accessibility, inclusion, and communication in transportation systems and public space and facilities. 2. Improving and optimizing the delivery of services through the use of artificial intelligence and other innovative technology. Since the appointment of the Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, the UAE officially adopted a mandate to use this technology to streamline and improve our work across government ministries and agencies. And the last and third point, engaging people of determination in program design and implementation across urban centers. In the long run, we aim to elevate our government standards and delivery of services to new heights, and that includes leveling the playing field to ensure the effective participation of people of determination. Measures to implement these plans have gained ground in our urban areas and beyond. For example, in our capital, the Abu Dhabi Smart Solutions and Services Authority, in collaboration with IBM, established the Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence in Abu Dhabi, with the aim of creating AI-based solutions across Abu Dhabi government entities. In a few months, Abu Dhabi will welcome 7,000 athletes from over 170 countries for the 2019 Special Olympics World Games, taking place in our region for the first time. Powered by a transformative digital platform and application, the World Games will optimize participants' and delegations' engagement in the Games, thus fostering the inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities from around the world. And in another example, in the commercial hub of Dubai, the government is actively working towards the goal of universal accessibility in Dubai under the auspices of Smart Dubai, a government office responsible for a citywide smart transformation. And looking forward to 2020, when Dubai will host the World Expo and beyond, the city is also setting the stage for the full participation and contribution of millions of visitors to the Expo. While governments around the world are prioritizing empowering persons with disabilities through smart and inclusive urban planning, we cannot and perhaps should not undertake these efforts alone. And so we will continue our work with the private sector and non-profit partners to execute innovative ideas and offer services to level the playing field for people of determination. With fellow member states, we underscore the need to share knowledge and good practices to improve our own efforts. Together, let's turn our promises into action as we forge ahead with the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and Agenda 2030. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so powerful what I'm hearing today. It is so encouraging. Things are happening. Thank you very much for sharing all of this. And I would like now to hear also the voice of the another stakeholder, the civil society, an NGO, an INGO that works on family issues. Because you see, when it comes to persons with disabilities, the mother, the father, the child might have a disability. And isn't it wonderful when the family can reunite in environments that are inclusive and accessible, so that there they can spend quality time together? So I would like now to ask Mr. Alex Vasquez, who is here on behalf of the President Mario Armella of the World, or Armella, because actually it's Spanish, sorry, the World President of the International Family Federation for Family, to share with us in 4 minutes some of the activities that you consider can add value to the panel that will be following this opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela, and good afternoon. And thank you for inviting us to this event today in this International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Our federation, together with the Regional Council of the Veneto region and the valuable initiative and collaboration of the Division for Inclusive Social Development, started a project called Inclusive Cities for Sustainable Families. The project is directed to local and regional governments that wish to actively contribute to making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, as SDG 11 states. It aims to follow up on the Sustainable Development Goals and the new urban agenda signed in Quito, Ecuador, by gathering good practices from local, regional, and national authorities on family-responsive legislation into making cities more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable for all. Well, in this regard, the local and regional governments that wish to show their commitment with the project sign the Venice Declaration and present a yearly report about the results of their work on points regarding housing, new technologies, transportation, education, healthcare, clean air, safety, affordability, families in vulnerable situation, leisure, and tourism. The project has a family perspective because we are well aware that all the members of the family are related to various social realities. So a family perspective will definitely contribute to a holistic approach of any policy intervention and to benefit each and every one of the members of the family, as of older persons, parents, youth, indigenous people, and definitely persons with disabilities. Today, in this observance, we turn our attention to persons with disabilities and their families among the different points of action of the Venice Declaration. The first point to consider about the Venice Declaration is how cities design should keep in mind all family members, especially older persons and persons with disabilities, while facilitating access to housing, involving inclusive urbanization, promoting smart co-housing solutions with common use of services, and ensuring flexible and accessible buildings. Another point of action is the necessity of connecting people through new technologies to ensure social inclusion. For example, the importance to bridge the digital gap through training of professional carers. Also, the provision of inclusive and quality education for all and the promotion of lifelong learning, as SDG 4 states too, should lead to the improvement of accessible and affordable participation of persons with disabilities in educational activities. Additionally, the organization of campaigns to promote healthy habits and lifestyles, especially those targeting the promotion of mental well-being while meeting the challenges of persons with disabilities and their families. Plus, the sign of a plan to make public transportation more rational and accessible while facilitating access to tourism, cultural activities, and leisure for all. And finally, establishing specific programs to recognize the value of unpaid work and care, and addressing the needs of families in vulnerable situations. We are committed to follow up on all the good practices and reviews that this initiative will bring. We are also sure that this universal call for action will promote inclusive cities for sustainable families and will help to leave no one behind, especially persons with disabilities and their families. And before closing, I want to appreciate once again the sponsorship of the Permanent Mission of Ecuador and Malaysia to organize an event during the observance of the World Cities Day last month. During the observance, with collaboration of the Division for Inclusive Social Development, the first local and regional governments signed the Venice Declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really want to thank the honorable panelists because, allow me, you know, I'm a person who tends not to follow the protocol, so apologies, but you haven't just delivered statements. You have shared impactful, ongoing activities that are happening. And this is exactly, I think, what persons with disabilities hope to hear from those who govern them. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. An applause. Thank you to the panelists, and now I think we have a turnover of other panelists to start the second part. I would like to say substantive, but actually this panel was so substantive besides adding policies. So we'll carry on the substance, and I would like to invite here the other speakers, including Victor Calisi, Commissioner on Disability in the Office of the Mayor of New York, Victor and myself, but not just the two of us as individuals, but for what we represent. We have been collaborating very closely during the last 3 years for this event that I mentioned was baptized 3 years ago, United Cities for All. So I would like to invite here to the panel Victor Calisi, then Mara Gabrilli, who is a senator from Brazil. We will see a video. Then we have Mr. Raul Krauthausen, a disability rights activist on accessible cities, as well as Ms. Roy, who is a specialist in inclusive design. And we have 3 videos from mayors, because we said that this is an event that wants to talk about United Cities for All. So besides having Victor Calisi, Commissioner of the City of New York, who will be talking about what New York is doing and maybe also share some words on behalf of the Mayor, de Blasio. But we have also video messages from other mayors. One video message is from the Mayor of Luxembourg City, Ms. Polfer. Then we will have a video from the Mayor of Skellefteå Kommun, I suppose, Swedish, from Sweden. And then Mr. Steven de Langen, Vice Mayor for Public Health, Social Care, and Senior Citizens and Sports in Rotterdam, Netherlands. So I would invite whoever, hi there, hasn't joined us to come to the panel, because I'm afraid if I give a 5 minutes break, we might not gather here in time. And I would really like to respect the time also of the other panelists that will follow from 5 to 6. So while the other panelists will join, I would like to start the conversation with Mr. Victor Calisi, Commissioner, New York City's Mayor's Office for persons for people with disabilities in New York City. Victor?
Thank you, Daniela. It's always a pleasure to be on the stage with you. So thank you for having me. So a message from the mayor. We have a city of 8 million people and 1 million people with disabilities that identify. So we know the number is bigger. And Mayor de Blasio is really committed to making New York City one of the most fairest cities in the world. And along with that, we talk about accessibility. And our office, along with the mayor, is working to make New York City the most accessible city in the world. And when we hear that, and we hear some of the stories that some of the people who've come up here today, throughout the day, talk about some of the inaccessibility in New York City. And we get that. And we appreciate hearing the feedback, because that's really how we move forward to make it the most accessible city in the world. And how do we do that? Well, if people with disabilities aren't heard, they're not seen. So we need to change that. And what we've done in government is really to look at that and say, people with disabilities or representatives of people with disabilities need to be in agencies across the city. So what we've done is we created something called Disability Service Facilitators, which was a local law, and we implemented Disability Service Facilitators in agencies across the city. Now, we have one of those Disability Service Facilitators with us today, and his name is Quamel Arroyo. He's in the back. Quamel, raise your hand. And Quamel worked for the Department of Transportation. So anything that happens on the street, he's responsible for. So go after him. Only kidding, I'm the person to go to. But the reality is our sidewalks and streets have to be accessible. Quamel has done numerous things to make that happen, adding accessible pedestrian signals on our streets, making our curb cuts more accessible, working with technology, car to car, person to car, person to infrastructure, car to infrastructure, when we're really talking about accessible smart cities, because we need to grow like that. We also need to be aware of other things that are happening in our city in our design and construction, in our school construction authorities, in our Department of Education, and our emergency management, ensuring that accessibility is not just the minimum, which is the ADA codes and standards, but the maximum, something that goes over and beyond, and that's inclusive design. And we're committed to doing that, and that really is one of the messages from the mayor. We've also done more, and Daniela, check me on time, let me know when I'm running out, to increase accessibility within the city of New York. We have added 50% taxis by the year 2020. People are unaware that they can get an accessible taxi within all 5 boroughs, and it works. And you can get that through an app, you can get that by calling, you can get that by texting, and it'll come right to your door, door-to-door service. So if we're talking about accessible cabs, just to give you a number, that's 6,500 cabs by the year 2020. We've also taken those ride-sharing apps, I can't say their names because they're 4-letter words, but we've taken those ride-sharing apps and made them accessible as well. We've increased the number of accessibility in those vehicles and more to come. We've been the first major city in the world to put a cap on those ride-sharing apps. But it's not a cap on accessibility. They can add hundreds of thousands of wheelchair accessible vehicles today if they choose, and we'll see what happens. So we're doing accessible cabs, we're looking at transportation, we're working to make our trains more accessible, which is run through the Mass Transit Authority. And they have a fast forward plan, and we're working closely with their head of accessibility and the president of the MTA, Andy Byford. Working on jobs. 80% of people with disabilities from the working age of 18 to 65 are jobless in New York City. And we need to change that. We created an initiative called NYC at Work, the first public-private partnership to get people with disabilities to work. It's funded by the Kessler Foundation, the Poses Family Foundation, Institute for Career Development, and the Nielsen Foundation. And it's really to be able to build the supply and demand side and employ people with disabilities in New York City. We are making great strides, and the numbers are starting to look good. And along with that, we've built a train-to-place model, because we hear cybersecurity is the next frontier, and we want to ensure that people with disabilities are including that. So we are training people with a 6-month intensive training academy that will get them certified by Cisco when they're done, and with a path to an internship to employment for people with disabilities. Because if we're not seen, we're not heard. These are just some of the examples that New York City is moving forward to make it the most accessible city in the world, and we encourage everyone to get involved and join the race for that accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, we keep moving by sharing things that are happening. We're doers, aren't we? So, well, Victor gave a few examples of statistics and data. And definitely, since we're talking about inclusive cities and inclusive urban planning, both in cities and also rural areas, let's not forget rural areas, but today we will focus on some parts of the world. We have to keep in mind, as it has been said throughout the day, that by the year 2050, 66%, as Ambassador Gallegos said not long ago, 66% of the world population will be living in cities, and increasingly concentrated in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So cities are under pressure to provide better infrastructure, quality of services, promote local economic competitiveness, improve services delivery, increase efficiency and reduce costs, increase effectiveness and productivity, and address congestions and environmental issues. So such pressures are definitely motivating future cities to turn to smart solutions, which will be discussed later on, but I would like and invite also our panelists to add to this dimension of our conversation. So smart solutions are required to ensure that basic urban infrastructures and services are more accessible, user-friendly, of all people, of all needs, and including persons with disabilities. I often say that when we talk about inclusive cities, besides talking about accessibility and in the way we imagine it, ramps and paths for persons with disabilities and the traffic lights with sounds, etc., but it's not enough to have access to a place. That place has to be usable, and that's something that we often forget. I can get into a museum, but maybe I cannot use or benefit of the things that that museum offers. So there is a huge difference between having access to a place and then being able to use whatever is in that place. So having said this, so we can think of transportation systems, public spaces and facilities, and the businesses. They are not always accessible and usable by persons with disabilities. And we know this because we have available data that indicates that many persons with disabilities find the public restrooms or public transportation, public spaces and services such as banks or shops or where you could go and do grocery, offices as well, and sometimes even medical, where doctors have practices. How do you call that in English, Victor? You go to their office, it's not necessarily accessible. The practice of a medical doctor,
yes.
Whatever. Okay. So, and playgrounds, public playgrounds, they have to be accessible. We just spoke about family, where family reunites. You go to the park, you go to the playground with your children, and that's an amazing place that has to be inclusive, particularly in cities that are becoming less and less human-friendly, right? So, furthermore, whenever we find a home, then maybe it's not always easy to make the modifications that are needed to make that house, that home, that apartment accessible and usable, friendly usable. So there is an urgent need to have a focus on accessibility, as I said, in terms of products, services, and built environments and technologies that respond to the needs of persons with disabilities or people who might have specific needs in terms of mobility, but then also the family and the surroundings and their friends. Because if places are accessible and usable by a person with a disability, they're friendly and usable by all, particularly in light of the transformation that cities are facing. As I said, 66% of the world population by the year 2050 will be living in cities. Therefore, cities have to be able to include all needs, not only those of persons with disabilities, but of their citizens. Now, having shared with you some of my thoughts, I know that I tend to talk a little bit too much. I would like now to invite you all to look at the video message that we received from Her Honorable Miss Mara Gabrilli, who is the senator from the government of Brazil, and recently she has been elected as a member of the CRPD, the committee that looks at the implementation of the Conference of the State Parties based in Geneva. Do we have the video?
Hello, my name is Mara Gabrilli. I come from Brazil, and I am a person with disability and a congresswoman in Brazil. I would like to thank Daniela Baz, Director of the United Nations Inclusive Social Development Division for the invitation. It's an honor for me to participate in the event of the 2018 International Day of Persons with Disability, with the theme Empowering Persons with Disability and Ensuring Inclusiveness and Equality. According to the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, we are all committed on leave no one behind. The main goal, which perhaps is the greatest global challenge, is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. We cannot ignore the two-way relationship between disability and poverty. Disability increases the likelihood of poverty, and as well as poor living conditions increases the risk of disabilities due to factors such as urban violence and lack of proper nutrition, basic sanitation, and clean water, among other factors. More than half the world's population already lives in the urban centers, and the fast, unequal, and disorderly urbanization have led to increasing pressure on water demand, sewage, living environment, and public health. For this reason, the Goal 11 seeks to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. All this to ensure that we live in a more efficient environment that meets or respects everyone's needs. An inclusive city seeks solutions not only to foster economic equality, but also social, political, and cultural equality. In the case of people with disabilities, the lack of accessibility in buildings, in the means of transportation, barriers to communication, to information, and to technology exacerbate the inequalities problems, which strongly impact the fundamental rights and freedoms. Today, at such significant date, we must reaffirm our commitment to social and economic prosperity, well-being, and the dignity of all people, including those who require additional support because of disability. We've been working for rights of persons with disability for 30 years. First, I founded a non-governmental organization and made many criticisms of governments and charged them. That was when I outlined a project in 2004 to create a secretary in the city of São Paulo, focusing on the inclusion of people with disability and reduced mobility. The mayor believed the idea, and suddenly I took up the challenge of promoting accessibility and inclusion in the largest city in Latin America. I understood that my primary role in the city hall would be pedagogical. I tried to disseminate concepts such as the universal design, and I showed the other secretaries that I was not there to exempt them from promoting inclusion in their folders, but to have a transversal role in the formulation of public policies. The São Paulo Secretary of People with Disabilities was the first one in Brazil, and today we have hundreds of similar secretaries all over the country working to adapt all cities. The ideal is to reflect on what the city has in its favor. Flat, affordable and safe sidewalks. Are schools inclusive? Do the houses follow the universal design? There are many reflections necessary to then create a positive agenda with solutions. This is the breakthrough we need to take. The solutions will come from a combination of efforts, careful planning and participatory management. This is the role that I assumed in Brazil 8 years ago as a federal deputy. With great pride, I was able to approve in 2015 the Brazilian law on the inclusion of persons with disabilities, based on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and its optional protocol. In 2019, as senator elected in Brazil, I will continue this work in fostering the rights, promoting accessibility, and fighting any form of discrimination. But it will also be my role at the United Nations as a member of the Committee of Persons with Disabilities. The Sustainable Development undergoes sustainable living and development, well-being, and the dignity of all people. This goal will be achieved only if we understand that this is responsibility of all of us. It's an ambitious goal, which is worthy of our best efforts and investments. Thank you very much for the opportunity of participating of the events of this International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Count on me to create favorable environments for, by, and with persons with disabilities.
Well, though she can't hear us, thank you very much, Senator Gabrilli. I mean, she's amazing. She's an amazing politician, and I know her also on a personal basis, an amazing human being. I think that we might have the connection now with, through a video conference with Mr. Raul Krautenhaus, whom, as I said, hello there. As a disability, hi. He's a disability rights activist on accessible cities. Thank you very much for joining us. And the floor is yours for about 5-6 minutes.
Thank you.
You're
I will
welcome.
share a presentation with you. My name is Raul Krauthausen, and I'm the guy with the red shirt you can see. And we are running a non-profit organization which is called Sozialhegel, based in Berlin, Germany. And we are, as someone in a wheelchair, I believe that participating in all aspects of life is a human right. My disability should not limit me from experiencing living in the city. The main question I ask myself when I go through the city or my neighborhood, can I get in? Many places, for example, have steps at the entrance or stairs, which are a big barrier for wheelchair users like myself. So the problem right now is that there is no information available if a place is accessible, and when it is not very easy to find. So the solution is making this information readily available with crowdsourcing. And so we started nearly 10 years ago with a project called Wheelmap, where we asked people to rate their neighborhoods like a cafe see a restaurant or a bar by a traffic light color scheme. For example, green means the places which are accessible, yellow means it's partly accessible, and red means it's not accessible. And to collect all this information all over the world in 26 languages with one app. And you can also upload photos and rate if there's a wheelchair accessible toilet and so on. And in the last 9 years, we collected more than 900,000 places. And these are places which are, for example, fully accessible, partly accessible, or not accessible. And these are all added by the community of wemap.org. During the last years, we observed that there are a lot of other organizations and projects and companies who have collected information about accessibility of places, which we find is great. For example, Foursquare or iWheelchair or AccessMap or some governmental organizations like data.gov.uk and many, many more. But the problem is it's like the Tower of Babel. The data sources don't understand each other, and we need a Rosetta Stone to translate their meanings. That's why we have built accessibility.cloud. It's a website. You can reach it by typing accessibility.cloud into your browser. And there we take all these many data sources I mentioned before, which come in different sizes and forms and formats, and bring them to one place in one harmonized format. So we asked...
Not sure if you can hear me, but there is a technical problem. Hold on. We're trying to we can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
The whole time.
Okay, we can hear you again. Not that well, but we can. Thank you.
Okay, where should I repeat?
Just the last 10 seconds.
Okay. So when you type accessibility.cloud into your browser, you can see a platform we developed where we collect all this information from different sources in different formats and bring them to one place in one harmonized format. And doing that, we gathered together with all these partners from 90 sources, some of them you can see here, more than 500,000 places additionally. And we encourage you as organization, as cities, as companies, to share data with us. Because 1.4 million places isn't enough. Disability mainstreaming for us means that the data should be ready to be used by others as well. For example, we are working together with car companies to share data to help their drivers to navigate to accessible places. We work together with the biggest real estate marketplace in Germany, where data is used to find places to live with accessible places nearby. And we also provided data from our platforms for the flagship report of the UN on disability. We believe that data leads to insights, and these insights can lead to a social change. So 1.4 million places is good, but how do we get to the next 100 million places? We believe that open data is the solution. Everyone should publish what they have. More cities should open their data so we all can use it under one format. Collect more data. Encourage your citizens, your companies, your businesses to report the accessibility of places. We can give you the tools you need. We developed them already. So, in summary, use our data, share your data with us and get ours too, and collect more data of your cities. Thank you very much. I hope you could hear everything.
Raul, we could hear and we could see very well also your slides. I mean, it was very interesting. You should have seen here in the conference room people taking notes. What you said was really very useful, and I'm sure that there is going to be more collaboration in the future. I would like now to give the floor.
Feel free to contact us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now join me in welcoming the last of the panelists, who is Miss Elise Roy, and she is an expert in inclusive design. Actually, she's an inclusive design strategist. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I first spoke at the UN many years ago as a lawyer and policymaker working on the CRPD. We spent a lot of our time advocating for equality, equal access, and to be treated the same. Today, however, I speak to you as an inclusive designer. And my message, ironically, is this. If you want to find the best innovations in terms of advancement, adaptability to change, monetary value, and inclusion, we need to move beyond our policies and standards. And rather than focusing on equality, on treating people with disabilities the same, we need to embrace their differences. It is in designing around these differences that lie some of the most profound insights into innovation. Take our phones. This is one of the most groundbreaking instruments that we use today. What are the key components? The screen, the keyboard, voice recognition, gesture recognition. What are some of its main capabilities? Email, the ability to call people, text messaging. It even acts as a remote control. These advances, which led to vast leaps forward in innovation, resulted from employing inclusive design methods. This is not universal design, which refers to making one thing as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. Often, when we do this, we sacrifice the effectiveness of a solution because we're trying to do everything with one thing. Rather, inclusive design recognizes that for an effective solution, we often must build a variety of ways to access an experience or product. Its goal is to recognize exclusion, to embrace the differences that an individual presents, to study them, and to use these differences to inform new solutions. Then to extend this new solution to many, to those with and without disabilities. So why is inclusive design so powerful to inclusive cities? The demographics of cities will be different tomorrow. Technology will be different tomorrow. We don't know what will exist, and we don't know how people will interact with technology in the future. Yet it often takes us 10 or more years to get a policy passed that outlines the standards we should be designing around, such as the European standards for ICT. How can a policy that began to be written 10 years ago embrace what is possible in technology and needed in our cities today? Designing for uncertainty, for a different tomorrow, means we need to build adaptability into our solutions. It results from embracing extremes and difference, not from designing for average. Designing for difference will lead to solutions that will accommodate the inevitable ways we will change in how we interact with our world, such as how being engrossed on our phones makes us momentarily blind to obstacles on the sidewalk. Universal design and the policy standards we create often ignore one of the most significant guiding principles in the disability rights movement: nothing about us without us. This is because designers think that they know how to design for disability because they have standards to refer to. As a result, they fail to involve people with disabilities in the development of a solution. Yet designing beyond these minimum standards is where real value lies for everyone. This is why companies such as Microsoft, Ford, and Adobe are investing vast sums of money in employing inclusive design methods to actively insert people with different abilities in their processes to co-design together. They do not assume that the designer knows the answer, but rather recognize that people with disabilities are experts at understanding their own needs and are some of our most talented problem solvers. They spend every day solving for the obstacles that they face because our world is not designed for them. So how do we begin? Insert inclusive design now. The sooner you start, the more money you will save in the form of retrofitting solutions, and the more you will make in the form of better innovations. Encourage educational institutions to teach inclusive design methods to engineers, urban planners, programmers, designers. Actively target and increase the number of designers with disabilities. Include exclusion experts on your teams. This is not a task force or an advisory council. These are people who test products or environments in person and in the context in which they exist. And finally, incentivize contracts which apply inclusive design methods and co-design approaches. Now, policy and standards are important for holding companies legally accountable and establishing minimum criteria. But if you want solutions that are valuable 30 years from now, if you want solutions that are not just steps forward in innovation, but are leaps forward, you need to look beyond these standards and outfit your designers with a methodology that actively inserts people with disabilities into the process and that embraces the richness of difference. Thank you.
It was so empowering. Thank you so much, really. Well, now we have a few minutes, around 11 minutes or so, of those 3 videos I announced, recorded by mayors from various parts of the world, since this is United Cities for All. And then we will have some time for some interaction before the last panel of today's marathon takes place. Thank you very much. Amin, maybe we can start.
Une ville pour tous, a city for everyone. That is what we here at the City of Luxembourg work toward every single day. We are lucky enough to have a very diverse population. Not only do we have about 170 nationalities living side by side, but the population also doubles during the daytime, with people from France, Germany, and Belgium joining residents to work in the capital. Integration has always been and will most certainly remain among our top priorities. It is thus no surprise that in everything we do, we strive to make sure that each and every person is offered the same opportunities and services, and most importantly, that everyone is afforded the same democratic rights. This is why we have adopted a design for all approach. When planning urban development projects, streets, walkways, and even entire new districts, we include solutions for making this infrastructure accessible to everyone during the initial design phase. Inclusivity should not come as an afterthought in the shape of amendment to make the public space work more or less for the disabled. Instead, whenever possible, it should be an integral part of the planning process. Moreover, we are working on adapting our existing infrastructure gradually and often based on specific demand to make certain main routes safe for citizens with disabilities, by adapting the walkways, traffic lights, and crossroads for the physically impaired. When it comes to making a city accessible for all, transport and mobility are a major issue, and over the last years, we have made strong progress in our public transport offering. Digital information boards at the bus stops offer real-time information on departure times for different lines, and over 200 bus stops are equipped with e-beacons, small Bluetooth devices that transmit all essential information to visually impaired travelers. Through the City app, these users receive instant notifications when they approach a specific bus stop, informing them about scheduled departures and other practical information to make their journey simpler and safer. With regard to exercising basic democratic rights, namely the ability to vote in national and local elections, all our polling stations have been made accessible for people with all manner of special needs, be it through equipment set up on site to allow everyone to vote under the same conditions, or explanations offered in simplified language, or dedicated shuttles for the physically disabled, providing transport to and from polling offices. In order to lay the foundations for this development towards an inclusive society, and by extension, a society and a city for everyone, a dedicated department for integration and special needs was set up in 2012, tasked with coordinating all these initiatives and projects, raising awareness among the other city administrations as well as the general public, and of course being a permanent open door for citizens and visitors on the topic of special needs. Building this kind of sustainable and inclusive society takes time, commitment, and perseverance. But most of all, it requires the active integration and participation of those it targets within the planning process, as they know best what their specific needs are on a daily basis. With joint forces, we will continue to work every day on making our city and society accessible for all for generations to come.
Distinguished delegates, I am honored to address you today on the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. All the way to the United Nations in New York from Skellefteå in northern Sweden. Issues for accessibility and inclusion of persons with different abilities has long been a priority in Skellefteå. Hard work and dedications pays off. As chairman of the Municipal Board of Skellefteå, I had the privilege to accept a special mention in 2017 European Access City Awards. The special mention focused on the work Skellefteå has done to include persons with disability working life. This has been one of our city's priorities. We know that having a job is one of the keys to inclusion and independence and self-esteem. However, inclusion is not limited to having a job, regardless of your abilities. You also need to be able to get to your workplace, to be able to use the office or facilities of your workplace. The theme of this session of your program is Accessible City for All, Smart and Inclusive Urban Planning. In Skellefteå, physical planning is one of the 3 priorities area in our strategy. Skellefteå, with 73,000 citizens, is growing rapidly with many projects going on. For example, Norfolk's battery factory, a new culture center and a new hub for public service. These developments give us a great opportunity to plan and build in smart and inclusive manner. Inclusion of the disability community at early stages of all planning process is our key to success. We are lucky to have active organizations for persons with disabilities who are keen on sharing their knowledge and experience. We benefit from listening on those who are depending on smart and actionable solutions. Our proposal is to have a politically adopted program or strategy with measurable aims and activities for all boards and departments. With regular follow-ups on the aims and activities in order to keep all politicians and members of staff accountable for responsibilities in the strategy. Accessibility and inclusion cannot be the concern of a single department or a small number of dedicated politicians and staff members. It is shared responsibility throughout the municipal organizations. In Skellefteå, we have created a council on the prevention of inaccessibility. Here, the politicians and members of organizations meet on a regular basis. The shared knowledge and experience give us a basis for making inclusive decisions that benefit everyone. Today, the 3rd of December, and the winter is coming closer. Winter is the great part of life in Skellefteå with lots of snow and long cold months. Snow and ice makes accessibility a really change. In the central area of our city, the streets are heated, making it easier to move with wheelchairs and walkers. It is also easy for our citizens to report any obstacles or hazards in traffic or public areas via our e-service or customer service center. We need to work together as politicians, as municipal employees, and as concerned citizens. We need to be flexible, ready to try new ways and learn from each other. Thank you for inviting me to address this important conference. I'll end this speech with a line from our strategy, A Skellefteå for All. Increased accessibility and inclusion has to be regarded as a transformational work. If we keep doing this the way we have always done, we will end up with the same results the way we have always got. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sven de Langen and I'm Vice Mayor for Public Health, Social Care, Senior Citizens and Sports in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. You might know that Rotterdam's main claim to fame is being Europe's biggest port. We're proud of that. But we're also very proud of what we are doing to ensure a sustainable city and to ensure an inclusive Rotterdam. Because in our city, we believe in everyone, in including everyone and making everyone count. So, how do we do that? For us, it's all about accessibility. And when we say accessibility, we mean physical access, of course, but also social access, like feeling welcome and being treated the right way. And access to information. For instance, our website's accessible to people with a visual impairment. And also, do residents really understand the letters that we send them? With our project, Rotterdam Unlimited, we raise awareness about accessibility among all our civil servants, but also among the city's wide array of different partners. Take our municipal services. We want everyone to think about accessibility well before we design or plan something, let alone before we implement policy or take any action. After all, you want to be prepared and not repair. For us, customer contact, whether by phone, in person, or the letters I mentioned earlier, is all about better access for persons with disabilities. We also do our best to make persons with disabilities participate in sports. And of course, we don't forget our youngest residents. Take our project Playing Unlimited, which helps children with a chronic disease or disability to play together with kids without a disability and have some fun. Crucially, we always consult residents with a disability, because it's their experience and their wishes that can make a difference. As the UN slogan goes, nothing about us without us. In Rotterdam, persons with a disability can count on us to make them count. One more thing. Making everyone count is all about making connection, about reaching out. So, if you want to come over to Rotterdam and share ideas, please feel free to reach out to us. We're very happy to have you. Thank you for watching, and of course, thank you very much for the work you're doing on the IDPD to make a better, unlimited world and a brighter future for everyone.
Well, I think that these 3 videos were also empowering and other good examples from mayors around the world to make this event, United Cities for All, even more empowering. Next year, the 4th edition, we really hope to be able to have here as many mayors as possible to talk about these topics. And who knows, maybe the city of New York might play a role in helping the UN to achieve this aim. I think that right now we have a few minutes for some interaction, if anybody has something to share or questions to ask. I have also to thank the European Commission and the Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion Commission of Europe for their support in today's event. Thanks also for the videos that we received from the European Commission. And I would like also to thank the mayor of Alessandria, Italy, Lyon, France, and Jumala, Latvia, for their huge support for organizing this afternoon's event. They couldn't be here with us, but they have been supporting the organization of this event today. Fantastic. So, you, Victor, being the only mayor, the only one representing the city, being physically present here, I saw that you took notes, and you might maybe wish to highlight a few things that you have learned by listening to other colleagues from other parts of the world that think might be interesting to be discussed further in the near future.
Thank you, Daniela. So a couple of things. Elise really nailed it when she talked about inclusive design and making sure that people with disabilities are included in the process. And I think I heard that theme through all the messages. One thing that really stood out as we were talking about disabilities, I heard a lot about physical access. And we really need to be cognizant that it's just not about physical access. It's people who are deaf and hard of hearing, and how do we provide effective communication and everything a city has to offer. Specifically, when someone who's deaf and hard of hearing going to a hospital, and how do they communicate properly for that care, especially in emergency situations. Really thinking about cognitive disabilities and on all of that, and learning disabilities, and how do we provide access for that in a way that is just fair and equitable. And then, Daniela, and you and I really did have a good conversation about parks and how parks are accessible for people with disabilities. We've done a lot of great things in New York City to make New York City parks accessible. And it really is talking about what Elise mentioned, about going over and beyond the codes and standards. And we have it in our parks codes and standards that look at accessibility and really think about how we provide for people with autism in quiet spaces in that area. How do we ensure that we have visual contrast in our playgrounds? Because it's just not about people with physical disabilities. It's about how does everyone come together in that inclusive playground. And I think I ask each and every one of you out here, you played in playgrounds when you were little, and what that experience was to be able to have that full integration. And it's not about kids with disabilities, it's about parents of kids with disabilities, and it's about that grandparent that's aging that really wants to really bring that in. So I think that public open space is really important, Daniela.
Thank you so much. So from inclusive urban planning, inclusive rural planning, and in general about cities that are united to promote inclusion for all people of all ages, I think we can move to zoom in now even more and focusing on smart environments smart environments. The UN is an environment. When we go to work is an environment. Our family is an environment. The leisure and parks are environments. So smart environments. For this, now I pass the legacy of this day to another person who will moderate the panel. And I'm very pleased to give the floor to Ms. France West, who is the founder of the France West company and former IBM Chief Accessibility Officer. If you can come, we had the possibility to exchange a few words earlier on. And allow me, this is not publicity, but it's actually raising awareness about how the moderator is really engaged in this topic. Today, she published her book that has been inspired by her personal story as a young woman who had to decided to work in the world of STEM, math, science, technology, and engineering. So tough for women nowadays, you can imagine in those days. And she became so passionate when working as a senior manager in IBM about also inclusion and diversity, to the point that today she published her very first book inspired by her personal story. So we will have here also Ursula Weijenhoven from the ITU. She's representing ITU at the United Nations headquarters in New York. There will be also John Paul Farmer, Director of Microsoft Cities. Then we have also Mr. Asher Remy Toledo, Director and founder of Hyphen Hub. And then we will also have Albert Manero, President of Limitless, Limitless? No, he's shaking. You will maybe, Limitless? You will pronounce it properly when you're here, please. Solutions from Florida. I had the pleasure to meet him through LinkedIn, actually, and he showed me what amazing things they're doing for children and technology, and to make environments accessible in a smart way. So you're all invited here, and now I disappear, and finally I will be among the participants. So be ready for my questions. I have many. Thank you.
Oh, now I can hear myself. Again, I want to first say thank you for staying with this incredible panel. Actually, I think you're going to find this as a very special treat in that we have quite a diverse panel from different areas of the society. And then for me, this is really a very significant day because about 12 years ago, I actually attended the first UN panel on the eve of UN passing the CRPD, or the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. So 12 years later, I'm here with my fellow panelists. It's really, really special. And the topic today, of course, is about smart inclusion. And this topic is really trying to bring together what we discussed all day today. That is people with disability, which is the largest constituency that we all will become, one, through aging. Today is sometimes is marginalized or sometimes is not considered as a mainstream constituencies. And with the leadership of UN and many global technology companies like Microsoft, who's represented here, and also some startup like we represent here, I think we're really changing the narratives. We're changing the thinking around the topic of disabilities. For me as a technologist, I view this as really an innovation opportunity because we all know that people with disabilities are extremely creative and they have to think outside of the box. So from that perspective, they can bring about into the government, into the business, what I call the disruptive, innovative thinkings. And also, they are the kind of people with disabilities are very persistent in solving complex and holistic problems because that's how their lives, is such that they don't think about just one thing. They think about many things. So if you're an urban planner or if you are a company, a startup, or large companies, when you have people with disability amongst yourselves, it will drive incredible productivity, which I have witnessed as the IBM's chief accessibility officer out of IBM Research. I was blown away by, for example, the blind scientist and also deaf, engineer on my team, how every single day they bring about different perspectives. So what we're going to do in the next hour or so is that I'm going to ask my panelists to really share a bit of their perspective from their area of expertise as to how, in their perspective, the disability enhance the productivity or the making or either their company or their business. And then we're going to go into a bit of a free-flow dialogue. And I'm hoping that by the end of the time that we will have time for you to ask a few questions. So I'm actually going to follow more of a alphabetical order. So I'm going to start to my right with Mr. John Paul Farmer, who is the Director of Technology and Civic Innovation of Microsoft. And before joining Microsoft, he actually was in the Obama administration and was in charge of some of the innovation initiatives. So I'm going to ask John to actually share some of his perspective, and especially sharing some of the special activities that Microsoft is doing in the area of hiring.
Thank you so much, Francis. Thank you all for being here. Good afternoon. As you can see, this short talk that I'm going to give, I've titled it Accessible Smart Cities. And I really can't wait until we can get rid of the word accessible from this slide, because at the end of the day, how smart is a city if it's not accessible? How do we move the slides forward? I put the finger up? Okay, I've got a lot of slides. You're seeing a lot of this from me. So next slide, please. At Microsoft, this little startup that you heard I work for, we decided a few years ago to go deep into cities. My team is now in 10 cities, and we're working with every sector of these communities. Local government, certainly, but also universities and nonprofits and startup communities as well. And what we're doing is applying technology for public good. If you think about where we are right now in the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals are discussed here all the time, every day. We're working on some of those same issues, and cities certainly being one of them, But to solve those problems, we recognize you can't solve those globally. They're global problems, but they need to be solved locally. And I love this photograph, which just happens to be from San Francisco, but really could be any city. And you see so many of the problems and challenges that we face in our communities. You see pollution, inequality, but you also see transportation, you see accessibility, you see curb cuts, you see a man with disabilities, also battling homelessness. You see how complicated and complex our communities are and the challenges we face are. And so what we did is we started talking to these different sectors of society in these communities in which we're operating to find out what their priorities were. And on the left side of the screen, you see jobs and skills, the future of work. How do we make sure our people have the skills to succeed as the world changes faster and faster? On the right side of the screen, you see sustainability. We all care about our climate. We need to have clean water and air. And in the middle, the core, accessibility. Increasingly, cities, mayors, communities are understanding that it's not a smart city unless it works for everybody. So at Microsoft, we're looking at those horizontals. How do we cut across, intersect? How do we contribute to these efforts? At the top, you've got our people and expertise. You've got our data. You've got our various technologies. And earlier this year, this book, The Future Computed, was published by Microsoft. That's right, the company published a book somehow. It's called The Future Computed, Artificial Intelligence and Its Role in Society. And what's going on with artificial intelligence right now is that for a long time we've had perception, but now we have cognition. And this combination, driven forward so quickly by advances in machine learning, is really changing the world around us and is going to have incredible impact, for good and for bad, in our lives in the years to come. And the change is happening very quickly. And quickly we're reaching human parity in a variety of different functions. You see on the screen vision and speech and translation and reading comprehension. And what's important to note is that while you've heard the term AI and artificial intelligence throughout your life, maybe watching Star Trek, even a Will Smith movie from the early 2000s, it really is different now. And it's different for these reasons, because we now can combine big data with massive compute power. And that's allowing these advancements, it's allowing AI to really impact all of our lives in a way it never has before. So this combines, this context of a world being impacted and changed by artificial intelligence collides with our focus on people with disabilities. The acknowledgement, the recognition that there are 1 billion plus people on this planet who are living with a disability. There are 1 million plus people right here in New York City, just outside of this building, living with a disability. Yet only 1 in 10 have access. And we know that these affect us all. It affects our family members, our children, it affects us, and it will affect every person at some point in their life if they're fortunate enough to live a full, long life. And so we think about disabilities in 3 different ways. There are permanent disabilities, and this is what people typically think of when they hear the term, but there are also temporary injuries, knee surgeries, and there are situational disabilities. There are situational disabilities when you're carrying your child or carrying a bag of groceries. And so when we design for accessibility, we're improving the world for everybody, not just for people with permanent disabilities. And so we can look at this and say, you know what, this is the right thing to do. But on top of that, we can look at this and say, well, we're going to look at the next slide in a moment. There we go. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also good business. And recently, Accenture did a report and came up with these specific data points. 28% higher revenue for companies that embrace best practices around accessibility, 2 times higher net income, and 30% better profit margins. What company would say no to that? What company would say no? And we understand why it's the case. It's this. It's what someone from TD Bank said, Bert Floyd, when he said, it's like saying to every 5th person who walks in your door, this is if you don't design for inclusion and accessibility, it's like saying to every 5th person, we don't want your business. Why would anyone do that? And this is the message we're trying to bring forward to reach more people, people who haven't already chosen to do this simply because it's the right thing. And at Microsoft, we've developed internally things like Seeing AI. This is an application, you hold up your phone, and it narrates the world around you. It tells you whether a dollar bill is a $5 bill or a $10 bill. It tells you what's on a written page in front of you. And it can tell you whether the person sitting in front of you is a 25-year-old woman smiling, or whether, like Victor, it's a determined 36-year-old, we'll go with, looking like he's changing the world. And it's not just what we're doing inside Microsoft, it's what our platforms are allowing other companies to do. So Azure, our cloud platform, and our various artificial intelligence tools are allowing companies like Cyclomedia. Cyclomedia is working with New York City, because after New York City was sued for not having curb cuts where they needed to be, Cyclomedia is using high-resolution imagery and LiDAR combined with machine vision analysis to help the city identify where those changes need to happen. Next slide, please. On top of that, Move It. Move It's the #1 transit app in the world. They've baked accessibility into what they do. They've worked with a community of people with blindness, community of people using wheelchairs, to bake into what they do accessible routes. More than that, they're now working with us at Microsoft to use their APIs on the Azure platform to allow any other company building their own transit app to not have to start from scratch, but to use what Move It has already done as a basis and go from there. Next slide. And so we want to support the companies through our technology, but we also want to share expertise. Our accessibility team based in Redmond, Washington, our headquarters, is critical here. They can help companies that work with Microsoft on talent attraction and retention, on compliance, on innovation internally. And just recently, this is big news, we announced AI for Accessibility, a $25 million program to reward people who are innovating, who are coming up with new solutions to help advance this mission that we all are a part of to address accessibility. And it comes back to the questions about what we see every day when we're out in the streets, here in New York or anywhere, and how we need to recognize there's a role for all of us. There's a role for every single sector of society, every person in this room to play a role, not just people in this room, people in your organizations and companies, people in your networks to solve these problems, because at the end of the day, there's no cavalry coming over the hill. At the end of the day, there are no superheroes out there. It's just us. And so no one is coming. It's up to us. So let's get to work making New York City and every city around the world truly smart. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with John more that it really is up to us, and that especially when we're talking about dealing with technology such as artificial intelligence, that we need every citizen to participate in understanding it and making it, because artificial intelligence is going to, in theory, represent every one of us. So the difference and the diversity that built into the AI is absolutely crucial. And the second takeaway, I think, from John's presentation is that it's a very exciting time for accessibility, because with a technology like cloud computing, like big data or IoT, now we can actually provide solutions at scale, which is very different from, let's say, even 10 years ago. So this is what some of the large technology companies like Microsoft, and I have to give a plug of my own company, IBM, is doing. But at the same time, in order to really move forward, and I personally, Daniela mentioned that I wrote a book, and that just came out literally today on Amazon, that I talked about, this is an area, in my view, the technology is entering into what I call the personalized technology era, meaning everything is going to be addressing what I call the market of one of individual. So that means a lot of the startups actually is in the forefront in creating some of these very exciting technology that will address individual differences. So with that, I would like to introduce Albert Manaro. And he actually is actually Dr. Manaro, and he's a co-founder of the company called Limitless. And I'm going to ask him to give you the background of the company. It's a fascinating startup.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's a real honor to be able to present and to be on this panel. I'm very thrilled to represent Limitless Solutions, and we are based out of the University of Central Florida. We focus on being able to develop accessibility technologies, in particular for dexterity and mobility. And today, with the report being released, we've heard quite a bit that accessibility access is really challenging. And one demographic in particular that seems to really have limited access is for children. This is not a United States problem, but really a global problem. And we're here working quite diligently to be able to advance not only the functionality, but the expression components associated with this type of technology. As you've seen on some of the slides prior to this, there's a high cost, especially for any type of prosthetics or accessibility technology. And we often hear that the technology is just not what the user wants. This may be a lack of their participation in the design, or perhaps a lack of us hearing the needs of the user before we design. But we cannot stop at these limitations. One of the things that we've been working to do is be able to lower the cost point for multifunction electromyographically actuated bionic arm from the hundreds of thousands of dollars down to the single $1,000. This is an example of one of the prototypes from our laboratory early on in the development of Limitless Solutions, where a young Alex is learning how to use his myography arm for one of the first times. As he's flexing his bicep muscle on his short limb, he was born with a congenital limb amputation. He's able to trigger the hand to open and close. And while this hand is just opening and closing, one of the things we have in our laboratory is the ability for the hand to do complete multi-gesture control. But this is the first steps. And this arm will go into the first clinical trials for the United States starting in 2019. And we're hoping to be able to really advance this further. Here is where we started. This was phase 1. And when we look at the design, even of one of our laboratories here at the University of Central Florida, we really believe that we need to stress the importance of designing public spaces that promote inclusion. And we need to recognize its role in all people feeling integrated into society. This type of inclusion can play a significant role for children with any type of disability and their psychosocial development. One of the things that we've done that's rather unique is we've partnered with the University of Central Florida to really be able to combine the scale and excellence of a large research institution and focus on developing this type of technology and the educational components that come with it. We focused on being able to have 25 undergraduate students each semester working on universal and inclusive design. They come from all different backgrounds, not just from the engineering side, but from the arts, from game design, computer science, and everywhere in between. At the University of Central Florida, we really believe that the role of a university is to drive new ideas to bring about innovation and inclusion. Being able to work with such a varied group of designers from such different backgrounds and getting a lot of feedback from our bionic children has allowed us to design some really beautiful and expressive bionic arms. This is just 2 examples. The actual artistic arm sleeves are on a magnetic rail system. This allows children to be able to design their own arm and be able to swap in and out the expressive components as easy as one hand can do. This allows them to design these different arms with different empowerment terms behind them, whether that's our warrior class on the right or this ethereal class on the left. One is meant to be bold and forward, while the other more light, regal, and adaptive. But for children, they really shouldn't have to choose. We want them to be able to embrace all these different types of expression. I think if you ask the children, it's really not all about just being able to pick things up or that manual dexterity, but much more about changing the conversation around the use of prosthetics and for congenital limb differences. One of the things that we've been able to do for the next round upcoming with the clinical trials is really empower the children to select their sleeves and then be able to design the color palettes and really personalize it for themselves. Again, one of the challenges with accessibility technology has often been revolving around both the cost and then the training or affinities that children develop towards their technology. For prosthetics, we often hear that it's just too complicated for children to learn how to use a multi-gesture device. And that's why in many places the standard of care still remains a hook device for an arm or a body-powered device. We've been working with our game design college in order to be able to allow children to train how to use their prosthetic using a custom video game system that when they flex the muscles on their limb with a difference, they're able to practice in the video game and unlock different superpowers for the screen. This has been able to resolve some of the major challenges because in a very short amount of time, a child as young as the age of 6 can go from having never used this type of electromyographic prosthetic to being fully comfortable doing 3 different multi-gestures and being able to use their hand for daily function and expression. An example of this in action, this character is doing 3 different superpowers depending on how hard the child is flexing their limb. Now, if we ask any child or even their parents, could you flex at 30% of your capacity? That may be different for everyone, and it may not really be identifiable. But being able to put it in the context of the visual feedback allows for much faster learning. And I think that that's the real secret to being able to improve the connections. Because we cannot continue to accept the status quo that the cost or the training complexities are pushing accessibility technology away from children in need. But with collaborative design, I think that we can go much further to be able to empower children, both with the expression and functionality that accessibility technology can deliver. One of our new projects upcoming is focused much more on the mobility side. We're working on this new wheelchair control system that leverages the power of electromyography, similar to the prosthetic arms, but instead we put the electrodes on the face on both sides of the temporalis muscles. By flexing and clenching your jaw, even while drinking from a straw or having a conversation, you can navigate the wheelchair any direction you want to go with full vehicular control. This new system may be able to unlock increased independence and mobility for people with any type of dexterity issues with their hand or decaying neuromuscular disorders in order to give them back some of that independence and the functionality that comes with that. This may even result in being able to unlock new opportunities for career fields and being able to go back into a position that requires a little bit more independent control, while many of these conditions end up with joysticks located on the back of the wheelchair, never designed for the user to actually control. An example of this in action is seen with some of our students in the courtyard outside of our building. And you can see our student Juan being able to drive the wheelchair in full control just using the muscles on his face. This type of design can really leverage the ability of a group of individuals, in fact students, being able to come together and try to design from that inclusive and universal design perspective. And we hope that this is the very beginning of a young startup and hopefully many others that will leverage this type of inclusive design to really empower people around them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The example that you gave was a beautiful setup for our next speaker in that, you know, when you design, in this case, it's not just for function, but for beauty and for artistic expression. And when it's designed in that kind of a holistic perspective, the engagement of your users, in this case children, is going to be that much higher. And then the intended learning will not become a chore, but become a pleasure. So this is a perfect example of why I always feel like when you solve or when you start dealing with a accessibility use cases, you actually can create very disruptive kind of solutions. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Asher Rami Toledo. I think he has the best job in this house in that he's straddled between technology and an artist, and fascinating background. And he is currently the director and founder of Hyphen Hub, and it's a New York City-based nonprofit that explore, promotes, and present radical new versions or new visions of the future through the integration of art and emerging technologies. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor to Asher.
Hi. Can you hear me? No. Yeah. Now, yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of all the artists that I work with, I'm very honored to be here. I come from the art world, and I'm not a specialist in disabilities or artificial intelligence, but very much from working with creative people, innovators that are in this field of art and technology. And I think the best thing would be to show a video, short video, 2 minutes. Just click play. Yeah. What's happening? Okay. There should be sound with it. But no sound? Okay, these can we see the video? Can the video run? Maybe no. The video doesn't run either. No, it's a lot of people presenting there. Anyway, so okay, Maribel has the. I start with the first slide was Infinity Flow Dance Company. It is a dance company based in LA. It was founded by Marisa Yamamoto, who was a stroke survivor, and she decided to create. She was paralyzed from the neck down. Yeah. So yeah, could you try again the play? Let me see if it works. Okay. So we can move to the next slide down. You move to the. Okay, here we have a. I mean, I have it in my screen, but I don't see it in the projection there. Is it projected? Yes. Ah, okay, here they are. Yeah. Not there. So can we go back, please, to the former one? Okay, this one is Marisa, Flona Infinity Flow Dance Company. So as I was saying, she was paralyzed from the neck down, and she created a dance company that is all inclusive as a way, because she was feeling she was being segregated in most places as a dancer, even as after she recovered, she was working with these people in wheelchairs, and she was feeling that having to ask for special needs desk and special services. So basically, her work is about total inclusion and showing the message of all access to anyone who wants to dance, regardless of their physical condition, in order to help eliminate the stigma that surrounds disabilities. She travels, she tours all over the world, close to 70 countries, performing, giving workshops and talks, and really empowering people with dealing with these issues. Can we move to the next one? We have Anouk Wieprecht. Unfortunately, we are not seeing the video that is supposed to be showing, but Anouk is a Dutch fashion tech designer based in New York. For the last 15 years, Anouk has been working with fashion technology wearables, and her designs are intelligent garments that are also healing garments. They come from they receive bio information from the wearer, which sends tell the garment if the person is nervous, is sweating, or if the other person is too close to them, is invading the personal space. And in this case, for example, in this dress, the dress opens up like a spider. So, and then when the person is more relaxed, the dress closes back to normal. And Anouk is designed. She has designed a wearable, which is the one I wanted to show in the video, which has been. Which is founded by the European Union, and is basically for kids that have autism and attention deficit disorder. So this wearable, which is just like a very unintrusive, has a camera, and it sends biosignals to the brain when the kid is at the high of his attention or her attention. Then the camera records what is in front of the child. In this way, they are studying what is capturing the attention of this person and when they are losing the attention. So they think that within a year, this will be available in the market, and is open source. So it will be available for everyone who has a 3D printing, and who also it comes with instructions pretty much how to do it. This one is a project called the Alternative Limb Project. The organizer is Sophie de Oliveira. She's based in London, and I just saw her last week. Sophie does one of the most unbelievable stuff that I've ever seen in my life. It's just, and I've seen a lot of amazing stuff working with artists. And she comes from the film and theater background, so she created all these very fantasy-like limbs. And she got approached once by this 12-year-old girl. She was one of her neighbors. She saw this girl saw what Sophie was doing, and then this girl had was missing a limb. So and was suffering from a very low self-esteem. So Sophie started engaging with her, and then he said, "What would be the ideal limb that you would like to have?" And from there, actually, this company grew up. It was she designed her limb, and actually, it gave this girl empowerment. She started do pretty well socially and at school, because she felt that these talked to her personality, what it was. So she's been doing customized prostheses, around the world, working a lot with the next artist that I'm going to show as well, which is Victoria Modesta. This is actually one of her legs, but those are Sophie was telling me, if there's some people like these girls, some people that she works with, one of the things that affect them the most is that if they are sitting in front of someone, they notice that the other people is staring at them, and it's just so now when they have their individualized prosthesis, they say, okay, if you want something to look at, I'll give you something to look at. But doing in a very positive, reinforcing way, as something heavy on your shoulders. Can we move to the next one? Okay, so this is Victoria Modesta. She also, the former leg is also one of the ones she wears. Victoria is from Latvia originally and lives in LA. Victoria is being called the first bionic pop star. She was born with a leg that was shorter than the other. She went through multiple surgeries that were very painful and very heavy on her psyche. So at the age of 15, she decided that she wanted her leg removed. And it took her about 5 years to find the right surgeon to do it. So Victoria wanted to be a fashion designer. She was also into technology and science. She's a fellow at MIT. She speaks all over the world about women in tech, about disabilities, empowerment. She was at the Paralympics in London at the closing ceremony. She does performances. This is one of her legs, for example. These are speakers. She also has another very amazing leg that is very famous, that many people have seen it, which is a spike. And she does this performance, where she dances and jumps and she falls on the spike leg. Victoria is, as I was saying, she has worked with some of the leading companies in innovation, creating also as well as with Anouk. They collaborate together, and they have created this team of amazing women in tech. Also with Hackster company in Seattle, where they have this group of women in tech, girls in tech. So one of the things that there are many girls in tech, women in tech, but they are behind the scenes. Well, one of the jobs that we do in Hyphen Hub is actually to showcase and bring to the front, to the stage, the work that some of these amazing people are doing. More than 50% of the artists that we work with are women, and it's and I've been in the technology art world. I noticed that most of the people around me are white straight guys, and I started like noticing that at the beginning. It's like, why is that? Where are the women? Where are the other people that are not these guys? So me also being different, being non-white, being non-straight, being Latin, I started like being more aware of other people that were not included in these other areas. So I started to, look around, and there was no hard to find. There was everywhere. It's just that they were not naturally included, because usually guys bring other guys who look like them to be in where they are. So Victoria is definitely somebody that has breaking boundaries from the female point of view, from technology, from disabilities. Can we go to the, let me see, next one? Oh, okay, here we have Jason Barnes. Jason is the one on the right side. Jason lost his arm in an electric accident when he was 22, and he got electrocuted. So he happened to meet Gil Weinberg, who's an Israeli mechanical engineering working with Georgia Tech. He created the music and robotic department at Georgia Tech. So Jason was a musician, a drummer. He's now known as the fastest drummer in the world. Gil has designed two pieces. One is then this robotic arm, which has two sticks, and one of them plays 10 times faster than any human being, and the other one has artificial intelligence, and he listens to the other fellow musicians playing, and he tries to fit in with the other ones. So can we go to the... and finally, this is Neil Harbison. Neil is also known as the first cyborg in the world. He was born with a condition called achromatopsia, which you don't see colors. So Neil also, at a young age, he decided to be radical and not to just settle for less. Once he knew what he was missing, that he was missing colors. So he decided, also talking about 5-6 years, to find somebody who will create this surgery. So that's and what he does is that he hears the sounds of colors. Yeah. So those are some of the people that I'm happy to work with almost every day.
Didn't I say that he had the coolest? He has the coolest job, I think. And again, this is a great example of how technology and humanity coming together, and the best part is that I think we are at a very exciting era that in the past, a lot of times the cost of supporting people with disability in terms of technology, rehab technology, it's kind of expensive. But again, with technology like John was mentioning, like Microsoft provides through cloud and all that, we can drive the cost of of these solution down to a very affordable level, and therefore it really open up a huge field of innovation. I think all of us would agree that in the area of supporting with disability or working with people with disability or accessibility, this is such a societal topic, and that it's just like education. It's not really one party that can solve this, because it really will require innovation, and requires policies, and it requires all parts of the society coming together. So my last but not the least speaker is actually Kadi Sel from from ITU of UN. Of course, This is a very important organization. I know when I first started working in this field with the UN, ITU, even back in the early 2000s, was a very strong supporter of this, because technology will not be made available without the telecom infrastructure. So, and Kadi is currently the project coordinator for the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing state at ITU. And she has been working very hard in really making sure that the technology actually can bridge the people that, who have and people who have not. So with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Kadi.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation to the ITU, and we are very pleased to be part of this session. First and foremost, the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, is the United Nations Agency for Information, Communication, and Technologies, ICT. We allocate global radio spectrum and satellite orbits, develop technical standards that ensure network and technologies seamlessly interconnect, and strive to improve access to ICT to underserved communities worldwide. ITU is committed to connecting all the people around the world, wherever they live and whatever their means. To leave no one behind, we believe that we must leave no one offline. In the Sustainable Development Goals, member states explicitly recognize that the spread of information, communication, and technologies and global interconnectedness has great potential to accelerate human progress, to bridge the digital divide, and to develop knowledge societies. ICTs are also explicitly recognized as a means of implementation across all 17 SDGs, and especially in SDGs 17. Information and communication technologies are an enabler for inclusion in society and have a vital role for empowerment of all people without discrimination. For persons with disabilities, ICTs can remove barriers, enabling greater access to communication and information, access to education and job opportunities, and thus contribute to social, cultural, political, economic integration and inclusion. In order to do so, ICT should be accessible and affordable. That means the ICT, including those used by cities, should have embedded the accessibility features from the design stage of fabrication, enabling their use by all users based on their own capabilities, needs, and they should be compatible with assistive technologies. One of the overreaching cross-cutting strategic goals of the ITU is enhanced telecommunication ICT accessibility for persons with disabilities and specific needs. The ITU's work on accessibility for persons with disability is described in our website at www.itu.int accessibility. Among other things, it is designed to assist governments at all levels to better understand the accessibility needs of persons with disabilities, the technical solutions that are available, and the policies and regulatory solutions they can take to ensure such solutions are widely available and affordable. Several resources have been produced to help governments to develop policies and strategies for mainstreaming digital accessibility at national, regional, and international levels in line with requirements under Article 9 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which define ICT accessibilities as an integral part of accessibility rights and also on par with transport and the physical environment. There are capacity building program reports and guidelines as well. Relevant to the theme of this session, ITU adopted several resolutions, such as Plenipotentiary Resolution 175, Dubai 2018, and the World Telecommunication Development Conference, WTDC Resolution 58 in 2017, in which member states have reiterated important concepts such as that persons with disability, both acting as individual and through relevant organizations, should be involved in and participate in the process of elaborating legal, regulatory provisions, public policies, and standards in accordance to the rationale of nothing about us without us, and the principles that should govern ICT services, equipment, and software to be accessible, namely universal design, equal access, functional equivalence, affordability, and accessibility, which means designing ICTs with parameters and capabilities adapted to the needs, preferences, and special abilities of each users. And that telecommunication ICT accessibilities for persons with disability should be achieved through the formulation of policies, options, and cooperation between government, specialized bodies, the private sectors, non-governmental organizations, and civil society. In those resolutions, there are also several recommendations ranging from integrating accessibility requirements into ICT procurement policies to encouraging and enabling participation by persons with disability in policy-making processes for ICT, and many others that will be useful also at the local level for making smart cities more inclusive. We also pay attention to ICT accessibility for persons with disability and offer specific needs, as we believe that a city can be truly be smart and sustainable without being inclusive. Together with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, ITU is the Secretariat for the United for Smart Sustainable City Initiatives, known as UN4SSC. In the context of this initiative, a smart sustainable city is defined as an innovative city that uses information and communication technologies and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operation and services, and competitiveness, while ensuring that it meets the needs of present and future generations with respect to economic, social, environmental, as well as cultural aspects. EU4SSC is a UN initiative supported by 16 UN entities bringing their own expertise to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 11, make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. It serves as a global platform to advocate for public policy and to encourage the use of ICT to facilitate and ease the transition to smart, sustainable cities. In focus are key performance indicator KPIs for smart, sustainable city that support the achievement of the SDGs. Case studies shed light on cities' experience with e-governance initiative, sustainability project, and smart city financing models. An analysis of the role played by public policy in promoting smart city elaborates the connection between policy innovation and smart urban planning. The collaboration hosted by EU4SSC initiatives has led to over 50 cities joining the pilot project and implementing EU4SSC key performance indicator for smart, sustainable city. We encourage more cities to implement these KPIs and participate in their work. EU4SSC is currently working on a specific set of KPIs for accessibility. The review of the KPIs will start in early February 2019. A participation of accessibility experts is welcome. ITU is also one of the partners in the World Smart City Partnerships, which had its annual event on November 29 in Santa Fe, Argentina. The event was entitled the World Smart City Forum. It was organized by ITU in partnership with the International Electrotechnical Commission, the International Organization for Standardization, and hosted by the government of the province of Santa Fe and the National Technological University. The goal of the partnership and the event was to make smart city a reality through a common approach founded on standards which have a significant role to play in achieving smart, sustainable, and inclusive city, supporting and motivating the embedding of good practices everywhere. Lastly, not only we need smart, sustainable, and inclusive city, but also smart, sustainable, and inclusive villages. I thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you. We actually are running short of time, so I'm just, instead of going through some of the questions that we talked about, I'm actually going to maybe ask one question for each of the speakers to speak to that. Since this event is coordinated by United Nations, and I would like each one of you to speak to why, for example, either your company or your operation or your a startup, what role does organization like UN can play in your area of influence? And I can start by just giving you the IBM perspective. So 12 years ago, when the UN Convention was starting, we got involved because we actually see this as a business opportunity, just like Microsoft. We also know that we need to harmonize the international standards in the accessibility area worldwide. And what better organization to work with, and with like UN, with ITU, because individually it's going to be very hard even for a large company like IBM. So I'm going to turn it over maybe to John to, for you to comment, your perspective on this.
Thank you, Francis. So the Sustainable Development Goals, we think, are an incredible vehicle for sharing of best practices and approaches. And I think, I'm here in New York. I've been pretty involved with the SDGs since 2015 when they were announced. But I actually think that's really an area that we can do better in, involving the private sector, going beyond nation states to the various players who participate every day in every community around this globe to ensure that we're really inviting them to help us solve those 17 global goals. One example I'll give is at Microsoft, we've made some big strides in terms of hiring internally. So we created the Autism Hiring Program at Microsoft a couple of years ago. We've hired dozens of people by giving them a different path, a path that allows them to show their abilities and shine, as opposed to putting everybody through the exact same path, which might not be a fit for certain people. And that's something that we're happy to talk about. We want to share these best practices. We don't want to keep this in-house. We want to talk about it. And I think the SDGs are a great platform, not just for us to talk about that one specific best practice, but for lots of companies and lots of organizations to plug in, get involved, and share best practices.
Great.
Okay. Well, my job as an arts organization is to show and tell, because I think an image is worth more than 1,000 words, and in the case of these remarkable artists, more like 1 million words. So yeah, it's pretty much like working together with policies and cities and organizations like Microsoft, IBM, who have projects where they are implementing, they want to put into implementation. The artists are the best venue to show this in a generic way, where everybody is going to get to. It's going to get to everyone. You don't have to, go into language translation. Pretty much, it's about empowerment.
I think the United Nations has done an excellent job being able to communicate the importance and the role of government and corporations being able to facilitate improvements, especially in accessibility design. Really, the UN has the opportunity to lead kind of that on-the-ground, local-based, community-driven participation that one startup or one company can never really achieve successfully. I think we're hopeful from the Limitless Solutions side for opportunities for collaboration, for the standardization, and being able to work around the globe in a safe and community-driven method first and foremost.
If I can actually just take a moment to echo an announcement that was made earlier today. Microsoft today announced that we are providing real-time captioning for Skype and PowerPoint. So Skype captioning and translation, real-time captioning and translation is available now. Just hit the little plus button and add subtitles, and it's going to be coming to PowerPoint in the new year. So we thought that the International Day for persons with disabilities was an apt day to make that announcement.
Very nice.
So this is actually, I think, what Albert talked about, Usher and John. It really speaks to that, we, with the public and private sectors and nonprofit coming together, I think that technology is affording us an opportunity to really align what I call the principle and purpose and profit together, which actually is the foundation of my book, which is my definition of authentic inclusion. Because, again, being a non-English speaking first generation female person in tech, I learned in my 30, almost 40 years in IBM or in the tech industry that ultimately, even though I'm a technologist, the technology has to respect human and human has to come first. And that we are actually potentially with the disruption that artificial intelligence is going to bring about, if we don't consciously think about how to put human first and really be very intentional in bringing diversity into the entire ecosystem of solution development, all from the beginning of design to all the way to implementation, and bringing the human element, like the artistic expression, because usually artists understand the soul of humanity, and then combine that using the large power of a technology driven either by cloud, Azure, or policy, then we will potentially have the society out of kilter. So, at the same time, with UN, putting this topic in a very, very visible format, and allowing companies and all the different organizations coming together to think about this, to reflect about it, to share the best practices is really an incredible both accomplishment and also a necessity. So with that, we actually have 4 minutes left. Any questions from the floor? I promise I'll let you go by 6. Oh, yes. Daniela?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I would like, first of all, to thank all of you. People are present in the audience and the panelists. You have supported us in this initiative so much. And I had a quick question. I mean, I have so many, but I have one question for Albert. When you came visiting us a few days ago, you showed us an arm and an artificial limb, and you told us, if I'm correct, that everybody can print it in 3D or something like that. And that's interesting. If you can maybe elaborate a little bit more and tell us how that's going to happen. And I know that one of your hopes is for everybody to have one of these beautiful arms or legs or whatever are needed for a very reasonable price, because as you said initially, you are trying to connect the world, the developed and developing world. Doesn't matter where people live as long as they have what they need and make them happy and feel really included in the society. Thank you.
That's correct. We are really hopeful for that global vision because we believe that all children are created equal and have the right for that type of access to accessibility technology. We do utilize 3D printers to be able to custom fit every device. We have a kind of a structural core where we're trying to standardize as much as possible, and then the custom manufactured electronics to be able to facilitate the motion of the hands. Right now we're working in the US healthcare system to be able to go through that clinical trial process, to be able to open the opportunity for kind of the global distribution with that ethos that no family should be financially burdened because their child needs that form of accessibility technology.
This is a wrap, and thank you all for coming today. And I think some of us may stick around, so if you have other questions, then we can talk offline. But again, this is such a privilege to be a moderator, and I want to thank my panelists for making this very easy for me. So thank you, and good evening.